Hi everyone, I'm Carl and today we're going over 3 easy ways to paint light on a miniature and some ideas on taking it further. I will be demonstrating on a piece of terrain because it's easier to film, but you can also use these techniques on a miniature, like this guy painted up to look like he was lit up by a torch. Part 0. Preparation. Let's start by preparing the model. I used a spray primer here, but you can also use a brush or an airbrush. What I did was prime the model black and then blasted it with grey and white. Whatever method you use, remember that you want to spray or brush away from the light source. So in this case I'm mostly spraying from the bottom up. And you want the light source itself to be brightest. So here I'm blasting it with white. Don't worry about getting nice gradients for now or keeping it clean, because we're going to clean this up later and you're going to get lots of layers of paint on top, and that's going to smooth everything out. For this model I picked the scale of colors, but you don't need the same number of paints or even the same colors. So if you want green lava, go for it. All you need is a scale that goes from dark to bright. So to begin with, I'm painting my light source in its mid-tone color, and then we're good to go. Part 1. Illuminated surfaces. We're going to start off with surfaces which have light shining on them, so decide how far you want your light to go and start dry brushing up to this limit with your darkest color after black. Again, we're going to be dry brushing away from the light source, in this case from the bottom up, because the light here is coming from the pool of molten stuff at the base. You're going to want to keep your dry brush fairly light and go with lots of very thin layers, but you can go a bit heavier the closer you get to the light. As you approach the source, start mixing in your lighter shades until you're painting with your brightest color as you get to the end. Don't worry about getting smooth blends, as long as you're keeping your layers fairly light and working fast. That will happen on its own. Also, keep in mind the position of your surfaces in relation to the light. For example, the crossguard of this model is facing down on the light, so it's going to get more light than the part of the blade that's right next to it, because that's angled away from the light. That's really all there is to it, although you can of course play with the tightness of the gradients and the steps in between to make harsher or softer lights. Part 2. Glowing stuff. To make the glowing rose on the blade, we're going to start with exactly the same technique and dry brush the same sequence of color around the rose. Except that this time, instead of going down to up, we're going to go out from the rune. Next, we're going to take pure white and paint it into the rose, and let it dry. This is going to give us a brighter base for the color of the glow. Next, take your glow color and paint it over the white. There is no need to be super careful, and if you paint outside the area, feathering the excess will just make it look better. To round these off, go back to pure white and use a small brush to paint in the center of the rose. This is what will make them really pop. One thing to keep in mind here is that this will not work as well on deep recesses, as they form real shadows which will spoil the effect. Before we move on to the third technique, if you're finding these tips useful, please consider slapping the like button. And if you have any questions or suggestions, drop me a comment below. Part 3. Molten stuff. Next we get to the fiery pool at the bottom of this piece. We already base coated this at the beginning, but now we're going to paint the inner sides of the rim with our next color down from the base coat and blend it in. This is because the sides will be less illuminated than the stuff that is casting the light, and the edges of the pool are going to be colder than the middle, so they will be darker. Once we have that down, we're going to go back to the first technique again and start dry brushing the rim, again away from the pool. We're not going all the way here, but we want enough that the rim has a nice hot glow with the edge immediately over the pool catching the most light. This is one area which really defines the kind of light. For example, if this was a cold light or a beam, it would be represented better if the top of the rim received no light at all. Here it still catches some of the glow. To finish off, we're going to warm up the pool itself, but stick around after that because I do have some more ideas. To give the pool some light and texture, I used a piece of kitchen sponge to stipple on more yellow and white. Then went in with an old brush and stippled some more. Just load up the paint, wipe most of it off and then dab it all over the pool. Since the object being lit is in contact with the light source, I carried this on to the side a little to blend them in, and voila! Part 4. Miscellanea. Now you could call this piece finished, but there are a few more tricks you can pull. First of all, the way I did this here makes it look like there's a single light source, which is very rarely the case in the real world. You can easily add some definition by adding a secondary weaker light source in a different direction using the same technique, just using different colors, like I did on this miniature here. In this case we have a red light shining on one side and a colder blue light lighting up the other one. This model also looks like it was made of a single material. If you're going to go for something more complex, you can easily represent that by highlighting different materials to a greater or lesser degree. I've already started doing this on Hans here, where the buckles are reflecting light differently from his armor and clothes, although I still have some way to go before finishing him off. And that was it for this video. This has been Karl Makes Stuff. Thank you for watching and stay safe.